Hi everybody. In today's video I can explain how to using the shared preference in the Flutter. So the first of all, in what cases do we need to using shared preference, or in which cases do we prefer to using shared preference over the SQL flight? So here we need to using shared preference whenever we want to store a small amount of data. Just focus on a small amount of data. So if you want to store a small amount of data permanently in the mobile phone, you need to using the shared preference. Now what's the difference between shared preference and the SQL flight? Here the difference just the amount of data, So in the shared preference, when we have just a small amount of data, like we have ID for example, whenever the user log in using the username and password and log into your application, to extract the ID of the user. So when the user go to the another screen for example, and you want to select or fetching the data depending on the ID. You want to fetch the data for the user, for the specific user. So here we have just ID, just a small amount of data. For example, also in the authentication, we have an token. For example, when the user add the username and password, the API will send the token. You cannot select or fetch the data from API without this token. So just the authorized user can access this data or fetch the data from the internet or from the API. So here you can save the token inside the shared preference, because just we have a token, just a small amount of data. But we prefer the SQL flight or SQL flight over the shared preference when we have like a tabular data, not a small amount of data. I mean by tabular data, like you have a table or information for employee. You have the ID, we have the name of the employee, we have for example the birth date and job and so on, or salary and so on. So you have a tabular data, or maybe you have a two table. For example, you have table for employee and table for department, and you have a relation between those tables. Also we have a table for post and note and the relation between table, or maybe you have a 3 or 4 or 5 table. In this situation, and you want to store this data, tabular data, in the application, in the mobile, locally in the mobile and permanently, we should using SQL flight. But if you have just a small amount of data, like just ID or token or score or mark or something like this, or just name for example, you're just using the shared preference to store a small amount of data permanently inside the mobile phone. Now I want to create a simple application. We have here main. I want just to like a simulation for ID, simulation to take the ID from the API. I want just to add the ID in the text field here in the application, in the one screen, the first screen, the main. I want to add the ID in the text field, and I want to see or display the ID in the another screen. I want to save the ID in the shared preference and then retrieve the ID from shared preference in the another screen. So here, just material app. In the material app we have home, and in the home I want to add the first screen for example, or just any name. I want just to add this class, and then I want to create a class stateful widget for insert ID. Now here I just want to create a simple UI. So here create the scaffold. First of all I want to add the padding. Just want to add a padding size around the text field. So inside the padding child I have text field. In the text field, I have controller. So I want to create this controller here. So I can add this controller var, for example ID, because we want to insert the ID. So the controller here is ID. After that I want to add a two button. One button to save the data inside the shared preference, and another button to go to another screen to display the data. So here I can add row center, and I want to add I want to add the space size box 30 for example, and then I have row. Inside row I have the button, float button, children, and I have float button, and also I think I have color. Yes, here I have color, for example colors dot yellow, just for example. And here I want to add another float button here. Yes, same thing, but here I want to go to another screen. Same thing here. Also, I want to see a size box between those. I mean just here from row, that means from width. Here I complete. Also, I want to add another screen, new, and Dart file here. And for example, here insert. Here I want to display play ID. I just name it display ID. Also same thing. Here just I want to add in the center. I want to add the text field. Text style. I want to change the size, font size to the 20 for example, or 30, and just like this for now. And here from here when I click the button here display ID, I want to go navigate me to another screen and then this for example you can add anything for navigator, and here material context display ID to the screen. So now we complete the UI. The first thing to begin with the shared preference, the first thing we should go to the pubspec.yaml. Of course you should know that to add the plugin share the preference, just add this plugin, and after that just go. I want now to save the data here. I want here to save the data. I want just to insert the ID inside the text field and save it in the disk permanently. So here the first thing I want to import the shared preference. So here just import shared preference, this package here because I want to use it, and then go inside the state. I want to add var db for example, you can add anything, equals shared preference dot get instance. Now I just add the instance of shared preference because I want to save the data inside it. After that I want to create a function, just a simple function, for example called save ID or anything. Now I want to save the ID. The ID should be integer or string or anything. Now here of course integer because ID should be integer. Here whenever we work with the database or share the preference, SQLite, API, Firestore, you should work with asynchronous programming. So here I should using the async because it is a future data. It's take a time. Even if I save the data, persist the data inside the disk, even it take a time, a little time. So here the first thing I want to add var for example pref. I want to using the instance of database here, but it take a time, so I should await for it. Just await, and then db. Now I add the instance of this data and await for data. Now I want to save the data. So here just very easy, pref dot set. We have set integer, set string, set boolean or anything. Here I want to add integer to save ID, just integer, so just integer here, set integer. Here the data will be saved as key and value. So here the key, anything, you can add string, anything, for example ID because I want ID, and the value what? The value whatever in the parameter here. So here C, that means C. When I call this function I will change the value here to the ID. Now I save the data here just to save the data. Now I just go here on press, whenever the user press here to save the data. So here just I will call save ID, this function, and instead of C I want to save the data or store the data that inside the text form field, right? So here it is ID by controller dot return the what? Return the string. So here I want to convert it to the ID, to the integer. So just here integer dot parse and then ID dot text. So here just to save data, and then I want to delete inside text. So ID dot text field equal blank null because I want to delete the data inside it. Now I complete here to save the data. Then when we click on this button, display ID, and go to this screen, right? So I want to display the ID here. So the first thing I want to fit the data. So just go here inside the state. I want to add the function get ID, for example. Also async take a time, future data. Here it is return future of integer. So just a future of integer because id integer, and we'll get the data in the future. So here now I want the same thing here. I add when I save the data here in this function. When I save the data, the key was id, right? So here also when I retrieve the data, will be using this key id. But instead of set id, I want to using get id. So here I want to add shared preference instance, and here I want to initialize it, and then here pref dot, instead of set integer, now I want to get integer. To use the same id, I have to use the same id. So here the same key, sorry, this id. This function will get the id, but will get the id in the future. Here, for example, I want to add id var id equal this id, and I want to return the id. I can add the number, for example, I add 6, for example, and then save id. Now, this id, this number, saved locally and permanently inside the disk, inside the mobile phone. And now when I go to the display id, click here, you can see I can get this screen display id and get 0 here because I don't get the value or retrieve the value from preference, from shared preference until now. So now here inside the display id, I just say here 0, so I just see the 0 here. Now I want to get the data and display the data here inside the text field. Here, you know, get id, it's a function, so I should call this function to work, right? So where and when should I calling this function here or this method here? Of course, where initial the widget here, when the widget start working. I mean when I just click here, I want to see the result without click anything in this widget, in the specific widget, in the display id. So here I have initial state. So inside the initial state here, that means whenever this widget is built and I want to do something, I want just to get id. I want just to see this function get id. For example, I can add here var id equal get id, and I want just for debugging, I want to print the id, and I want to see what's inside the id here. Just when the application start working, or when the widget start working. Now here just print, that means just for debugging, just I want to see here in the terminal. So here when I add the id, for example add 5 and save it, and then display id, you can see here print what? Instance of future integer, because this function here get integer, get the integer but in the future, not now. So here I want to do something, I cannot just print it like this. Here I just say print, I cannot do that. So here I want to do what? Integer id dot here then, that means like a promise. When the data, whenever this data is coming in the future, because the data will come in the future, so whenever this data come, I want to print it. So here it is then on value, that means we return the value. Here the value maybe can add id or value or anything, just add it here, and there's a function. Like this, you have a function and get the value. Now inside it, and inside this, I can say print what now? Print the value, right? So now I can see without this print here. I want again to check. Now here I add 2, for example, save the 2 and then display. Now you can see 2, right? But now I want to see this 2. Now this 2 here, this print locally, this local variable here id. I want to access this variable globally outside this function here, outside the initial state. So here I can initialize the variable, for example integer id, because I want to access it in the text here. Now here I want to delete this, and instead I want to add just get id dot then, and then inside then I have value Same thing. Inside it I can add the ID, this is global ID, equal what? Equal the value. That means that value will come from future, from the kid ID. So now here I have an ID globally. I can access this ID from outside the function, the initialize, and then I can add it here. I can say ID, but inside the text I should add string, right? And the ID is integer, so here just do string. Now I can get the ID and show the ID inside the widget, inside the set. Here now, for example, I add one and save it. Sorry, add one and save it, and then get. Now it is null. Why? Because I said before, state here. The ID is a state, and I want to change the state and rebuild the widget, which is the text. So here I should add the. When I want to change the state, I want to add set state. Set state, and inside it I can change the state. Now again 3 for example, and save it permanently inside the preference, and then display ID. Now I can see the ID. So I hope it is useful. Thank you very much.